Okay,
We are going.
we are go. Okay, welcome along. This is the first of our Undercover podcasts. I'm David Farrell. We've got Adrian Buckman. How you doing, Aid?
How you doing? Yeah, not too bad. Hopefully this time will be technical issue free. I'm hoping.
Yeah, we tried the second time we tried to do this, haven't we? The first one was an absolute nightmare.
First one, was interesting because it gave all the impression that it was going to go well, and then every now and again my internet just kept cutting out. It didn't make sense, but I've upgraded my internet since then. Since then, I've got super fast broadband now. I've got better wireless in the house, and I'm in a different room. I'm closer to the router now, so fingers crossed. We should be good.
How far did we get? We were about 20 minutes in, didn't we? And then you just cut out completely. You were gone, weren't you?
At one point I was about 1 or 2 seconds behind, and it was one of those really poorly dubbed adverts that you get. you can hear me, but my lips are not moving at the same time. It was
Chinese martial art thing, wasn't it? Bruce Lee.
yeah, without the moves. Yeah. just keystrokes.
Right. What's the plan? And what we've got today? So I think we've got a few exciting things today, haven't we?
I think so. Yeah.
So, Aid, so we've got coming up. I think you gave a little teaser on it on the blog, didn't you? You put a little preview out of the Undercover Inspector, which you've been working away on. Yeah,
I've been beaving away on that one. That should be pretty good, I think. We'll run through a few of those things today. How to set it up, because it's a pretty simple setup, but there's a few key things that you want to get right straight off the bat, really. And then we'll see it in action. We'll see. I've got some fresh VMs, so I haven't got any history or anything in there, so it's going to be a bit basic, but you'll see the bolts, the nuts and bolts of it all, and the guts of it. So that should be good. Get to the guts. Yeah, get to the guts of it.
So yes, this is our. It's not really a monitoring tool, is it? So much. It's more. What do you describe it as, Ed?
Not at all. It's more just those little maintenance things, those little housekeeping things that you do all the time. Those little things are, I check database ownerships. I want to see if there's failed jobs, and I just want to see generally things growing out. What's my biggest databases, that sort of thing. Those things that if you've got multiple servers, it's quite time consuming. So the idea of the inspector is once a day, in a time that you choose, you're going to get a daily digest, and it's going to tell you what's happened in the last 24 hours based on these modules. So some of those modules include failed agent jobs, failed logins. It's going to show you dry space warnings. It's going to check your backup location if you've got enough space there based on the history of your backups for that given weekday. So if it's likely to run out of space, it's going to give you a warning to tell you that sort of stuff. Just a little heads up. There's some thresholds you can set. There's some informative stuff, and then there's some stuff there that's based on warnings and some advisory conditions. So it kind of takes you away from that sort of day-to-day stuff, so you can focus your areas on the cool stuff, like tuning stuff, things like that.
I mean, we've been using it for a while, haven't we? Now I don't know how long we've a good few months though we've had it running, haven't we? And it's really proving to be good.
It's really handy, yeah. It's that handy go-to. Just wait for the email comes in the morning. You have a little look through it. You really want to turn that thing green because it's got this little traffic light system. You want that thing to be green every day. You don't want there to be a little amber warning on there, like advisory, or a red warning. You just it becomes a little game. To be honest, I'll be honest with you. I just want to make it green.
It does get started. We come in the morning, everything's green. He gets really excited.
Yeah, it's like yes.
You get a little red one, and you've got the hump on it the rest of the morning. You sit there and sulk.
Where's red? Yeah.
So that's the Inspector. I think after that, then we're going to look at the official release of SP Restore Script version 1.2. So SP Restore Script, if you haven't seen it, is just a little script we put together that just builds your restore statements for you. So if you need to restore a database at a certain point in time, it's got a load of different options. So say if you've not seen it, we'll go through that. We'll go through the different options. There's a few new things I put in there for this new version, a couple of bug fixes. So yeah, we'll just show you that. And Aid, I'm going to drop you in it now because I've just thought of something else we could do.
Yeah,
we haven't spoken about this yet, but I've been doing a little series about building your own test lab on your workstation.
Yeah,
you might have seen it. It's on the blog. Done 3 parts of it. It's been proved really popular. A lot of people have given me a lot of good feedback on it. But one thing a few people have said to me is, I said, this is really good. Thanks for this, because I've always wanted to do this. I always wanted to build my own test lab like this. But the thing that puts me off is I've no idea how virtual machines work. I've no idea where to start with virtual machines. So as a little added extra, I thought we could just go through a little look at how to build a virtual machine.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
I mean, I'm using VirtualBox. We go through VirtualBox. I know you've gone over to Hyper-V now, haven't you? So perhaps you could give us a run through the Hyper-V as well.
Hyper-V. I like Hyper-V. It's good. I mean, Oracle's great because it's really simple. But so's Hyper-V. But when I first looked, I thought, oh man, there's quite a bit to this. But the more I've worked with it, the easier it's become. It's actually pretty cool. I like it. I think it might be my go-to choice now. It's good.
You're converted, aren't you?
I think so. Yeah. For now, until the next thing comes along, of course.
That's always it, isn't it?
Like SQL and Python. I like that. It's good.
Yeah, Python. Let's not go to Python today.
Let's
we'll go to Python. We'll do Python maybe next month.
Yeah,
that'd be a good one to do at some point, wouldn't it? Python
would be a good one to do. I like the sound of that.
We'll do that then. Next month we'll do a bit of a Python off. That could go anywhere.
So
let's not think too much about that.
No. Let's should we get started?
Over to you then, Aid.
Right. Okay. Let me show you. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so let's start with, I've got this set up already, but this is it. This is the script that'll be out there to use. This will be the go-to to get things set up in the first place. First, it's just a bit of information really about what's in there. If you're on a version less than 2016 where you're not running string split string as standard, then you're going to need FN split string from our website, which you can get, and the URL's in there. Basically creates a schema in the given database, 21 tables, 15 stored procedures, and then there's 4 agent jobs it's going to create. Now, you can choose whichever database you want to log this stuff into. Currently I'm using SQL Undercover DB, but if you've got a login database already, lots of people have got a DBA database they like to use. Feel free to point it to that. It will create a schema in there. So as long as you haven't got a schema called Inspector, then you're laughing. Otherwise, this is going to piggyback onto your existing schema, which you may not want. So you might want to keep this separate. Like I say, I use SQL Undercover DB, but that's just my go-to. So, there's 3 steps in here. It's pretty simple. Step 1, you've got a couple of things to check here. So in my arrangement here, I've got a single availability group, and I've got SQL 1, I've got SQL 2, just to keep things simple, nothing too fancy. I've got 1 AG. And what I've got set up is SQL 1 is always going to be my central login database. So SQL Undercover DB here is my central one. SQL 02, I've got a link server here that points to SQL 01, SQL Undercover DB. So what will happen is any collections I run over here are going to populate SQL 01's database. So when I run a report on SQL 01, I'm going to get data from SQL 01 and SQL 02. Now, there is a reason why I've done it that way, because in my arrangement, SQL 2 can take backups from SQL 1's AG databases. So, for example, Stack Overflow, SQL 2 can go in there and it's going to take transaction log backups. Now, if I'm not logging that backup information that I'm getting from MSDB into somewhere central, then the report's never going to know about it. It's never going to know. It's just going to say, oh, yeah, your transaction log backups they haven't been taken for like 2 years. But actually, in essence, they took 15 minutes ago. So, there's a little bit of thought around this as to whether you're going to want to have link servers in place, whether you're a fan of them or not. I know lots of people aren't. But unfortunately, at the moment, at this stage, link servers are the only way we're doing things if you need to report into a central database. If you were on a single instance, you could just set this to null. Just simply set that to null. And then all the statements that are built up during this setup process, they're not going to use link server. They're just going to directly reference that database, and that's it. But for this demonstration, I'm using the inspector config link server, which is down here, and my database. And if I had specific data drives, I'd set them here, comma delimited, and the same with my log drives. And what this is for, there's a database file check module that will check if you've got any data files on your log drive and vice versa. So if you've got any log files on your data drive, it's going to tell you about that stuff. You can switch all that stuff off, which I'll get to in a little bit. Initial setup. So for your very first setup, you're going to want to flick that to a 1. And then what it will do is it won't check for any existing data. It's just going to go in there, create all the stuff, and get you going. If you set that to a 0, the idea of that is if you come in here and you're going to sort of run an upgrade, for future releases of this, we'll have an upgrade script. You'll set that to a 0, and then if you don't want to lose any of your pre-log data, it's going to keep hold of that for you and put all that back in place once it's rebuilt all the tables and all the procedures behind the scenes. So that's the step 1. It's pretty simple. Like I say, link server if you've got one, database name, which you're going to use for your central login database, set your data drives and your log drives, initial setup. Down here, we've got a few specifics. I won't go into these too much. They're pretty self-explanatory and they've all got notes next to them. You can tailor the subject for your emails if you're going to use it to send emails, that is. Set your email recipient here. You can have that comma delimited. Your backups path, so I've got mine set up to my DC backups. If I jump over here, you'll see it. It's here. This is my DC backups. So I can check that remotely from the SQL Server because it will use XP command shell, which I'll probably, chances are, haven't got enabled because it's a new VM, so I probably haven't even enabled that. Always the way. So, there's a few other bits here. So this bit here is the drive space retention. I like to keep 90 days, but you can keep more if you need to keep more. There's some thresholds here. So this is for the red warning. This is when I want to see it go red. So when I'm running to the point where after all the calculations have taken place and it thinks that a given drive is going to run out within 56 days, it's going to tell me, it's going to flash up in red, big warning sign at the top of the email to say, look, you're going to run out of space there in 56 days. There's a percent there, set that to 10%. If I want to exclude any, so some people like to exclude like the C drive, for example. They're not interested in seeing that stuff. That'll exclude that from the percentage. It won't exclude it from the warnings though, because there's a good chance you're going to want to know if you're going to run out of space there. But you're not going to see the percentage bit, because I know that I know some of the servers I've seen, some of the system drives, they're pretty small, sort of 30 gig, 60 gig, sometimes they can feel, but sometimes they sit around sort of 10% free. It's quite normal. Bit scary, but yeah, it can be normal. Gross allowed per day. At the moment, this is set per day, and I'd imagine there might be people that want to do this by hour and such, and perhaps in a later version we will probably get that changed. But for now, this will detect growths, and the way it will do that is it's going to check the space now. So we're starting today. It's going to get all those database sizes as of today, and then sort of tomorrow, same time, if I'm logging this data again, it's going to basically take the difference between the two, and then it's going to look at your growth rates. It's going to determine how many increments it took to grow to that space if it grew, and then it's going to look at these thresholds. And for example, if you're allowing 1 a day and it's only grown once a day, it's happy. But if it grew twice, it's going to say, right, I'm going to set an advisory and say, look, this database file grew twice. And it will give you a suggestion based on that growth as to whether you might want to change to a different growth rate, but that's pretty much up to you. That's up to you. That's down to you how you manage it. And then you've got a maximum one. So if you really don't want things to be growing any more than 10 times in a day, it's going to flash you up a red warning to say, look, something grew more than 10 times in a day. Again, these are all self-explanatory. Agent exclusions, backup thresholds, these are in days. So if I've got a backup for a given database older than 8 days, I want to know about it. It's going to go red. Diffs for me, 2 days, and log backups in minutes, 60 minutes. Owner exclusions for databases, I've got SA. This is because I'm happy for everything to be set SA. If it's not SA, I want to know. And it's the same with the agent jobs. If it's not SA, if it's not owned by SA, I want to know about it. But you can configure this however you want. Not everyone's a fan of that stuff. Some people like to set themselves, or devs and stuff. It's up to you. Comma delimited list again, so you can set that however you like. So I want to keep it simple. I've already ran this already. I ran it with these settings, so it's using my link server. using my SQL Undercover DB. It's going to check my DC backups, and it's using all the standard basic thresholds, which are already set. So what you're going to get is you're going to get a bunch of tables in your database, which is all this lot, and then you're going to get a bunch of procs, which are pretty much your collection procs. So this is going to, anything with an insert, it's going to go out, that's all your collection stuff. And then you've got the report put on each database too. Now what drives it is the SQL agent. So the SQL agent will have, if I refresh my list, you'll have a collection for the report itself, and the periodic backups, if you choose to use it, is just a backup report. So it's a condensed version of the complete inspector report. All uses the same code, except that that particular one has a different type of module config setup, which I can go through in a bit more detail in a minute. So the first thing to check, that when you run this setup, it will give you a bunch of information down here, and it will just basically say, look, go and check your current servers, make sure that all your central servers, all your servers you want to report on are in this table. This table looks like this. So for me, I've got SQL 01 and it's active, SQL 02 and it's active. Now, if I wanted to take 2 out of the equation, I could just set is active to 0, and it's not going to report on that anymore. So up to you. This is if I want to use a completely separate configuration. So what I might find is I might want to run SQL 01 and have absolutely everything enabled. Give me everything. But for SQL 02, I might only be interested in failed agent jobs, for example. So what I could do with that is I could go over to my modules section and I could add another module. So at the moment, everything runs off of default, and the periodic backups check runs off of periodic backup check. And what you'll have is these are all the modules that are enabled. So if it's got a 1 next to it, it's enabled. So at the moment, you can see default has everything. And the backup check only does backups because that makes perfect sense. So it only reports on the backups, and that's why we've got a separate agent job for that down here. So I can set that to run every 2 hours if I want. Set it to run every 2 hours. I want to know about my backups every 2 hours, just to make sure everything's in place. Now I'm sure most people will probably have real-time stuff in place for that. So I'm not suggesting that you should use this as your everyday real-time monitoring solution. But certainly, if you want to know throughout periods of the day, just to collate all that information and make sure that everything's in place, then that's a good way to go. I mean, we run this. This is a good one. We run it every sort of 2 hours. We've got real-time alerts in place because we use Minion. But sometimes it's quite handy to see it in a report just to make sure that everything's good, everything's green. So yeah, that's the module config. I won't go into too much detail with that because it will take a little while to explain this. But this is, you can add into here. So if I added a new one in here, I could add one for SQL 02, for example. I can enable whatever I want. I can come back to here and I could say, well, set that to SQL 01's config. And it's only when it runs, it's going to pick up for that server. It's going to run my specifically enabled modules instead. And if I wanted to set table colors to make it look different for those particular servers, I can do that too. I just set a hex value in there from HTML color code in there. It's fine. I just plug it in there with a hash color, and it looks a different way. So what does it look like? Let's get a run. I've done enough talking for now. Let's give it a quick run, and we'll have a little look, and we can run through the report. So each of these tables has got will hold information once I run the collection. Once I find the window, close a few windows down. Get rid of that one. Get rid of that one too. So I'm going to cheat. I've got a bit of code here ready to go. I'm on my registered server, so I'm just going to run the collection on both servers. I'm going to check it's not running. It's still running over there. It's gone. Just make sure they're not failed. Nope. And by the way, these two are a couple that we've got on the blog. So if you're interested in these are on the blog. Just go to SQLundercover.com. Check out the toolbox. You'll find these guys in there. This one in particular is really handy, especially across registered servers to see what's running. Really useful. So I run a report, and if I look in the report table, I should get a nice bit of HTML. Now the reason I've got that is because I didn't bother specifying a let's change it to ascending just to be sure. The reason I've got it in the table is because I didn't bother to specify an email recipient, because I just want to see the report in raw form. So we'll chuck it in there. I go to my desktop, fire it up, and this is what we get. So I've got a really poor set of servers here, which is fine, you know. So red will take precedence over yellow. So yes, although there's yellow in here, you know, these guys were red, so it's going to take precedence. Now, if I sorted these out and I sorted the red ones out, then it's going to go yellow, and I'm going to see 2 yellows up here instead. So this is your traffic light system. So depending on where you're at with each server, these will color code accordingly. So I've got some AG warnings here. Yeah, I didn't set this up. Yeah, I did. Of course, I set it up to fail. But yeah, I've got some AG warnings. So if I click on that, and these are all hyperlinked, by the way. So if I've got warnings here, I can click on it. It's going to take me straight down to the section for SQL 01's problem. It's going to tell me that you know, AG1's not healthy. Yeah, I fudged this. That's why it looks funny. Backup issues. If I've got any backup issues, again, I can click on there. It's going to take me to the table. It's going to tell me Adventure works. It's not in an AG. It hasn't had a backup at all. It's not had a diff at all. The log is not applicable because it's not full recovery. And it only sits on SQL 01. But the good bit about it is, because we're collecting across both servers, this is where it gets good with the backup check, because this database, AG1, it's called AG1, it's poorly named, is in AG1. It's had a full backup. It hasn't had a diff. You may or may not care about that, but you can change the tolerances because they're all set down here. As you can see, this is all pulled from the configuration table. And its last log was yesterday. No, 23rd, sorry. That was days ago. And it could be on any one of these servers. Because it's in an AG, and these are the replicas for that AG, you may not have it set to take on the secondary, but you might change it to take on the secondary. So if so, it's going to be on either one of these 2 servers where the problem's at. Now, what it's done in this case is collected both servers worth of information. It's grouped it by AG name, and it's taken the maximum out of each of the servers. So this could have taken on either of these 2. But the good bit is, if we'd have reported on this separately, could have given you bad information, but this is good. It's collated both servers. So yeah, the rest of it's there, all there. Backups check, red, got a problem. Here's the thresholds. I might have set the thresholds badly. I can check them here. If I did, I can go back to the settings table and change all that. AG warnings we've covered. This one's a good one for the database states. Now, so often, you know, these can go undetected, these things. If you know, you're looking at a few servers, you might not notice that a database has just slipped out and gone recovery pending. You know, you might have had a blip on the storage system and it hasn't come back, and you've got stuff that's sat there recovery pending. You haven't got a clue about it. And this is the type of thing that's quite handy to know. I mean, how often do you check the database states? Do you check them every day for every server, every time? I don't know. Maybe you do. I don't know. But this is going to pick it up for you. And I've got a database, recovery pending, just the one, called Conundrum. How copious. So, like I said, I haven't got XP Command Shell enabled, but it's going to tell you that. So backup storage, XP Command Shell must be enabled for the module backup size check to run. Otherwise, what it would have done is it would have told me how much it's expecting to back up tonight, how much is free on the backup server, and how much space I'm likely to have after that. It does take a 10% buffer into account here as well. So it will say, what have I got today? Add about 10% to it, and then use that data plus 10% to take away. Now I haven't got any data because I've got a fresh VM, so that's why. But normally you'd see numbers in there. And then we go down to the advisory conditions, where in this case I've got a few database ownerships that are not SA, and some potentially ad hoc database creations in the last 7 days. That can be an annoying one, but it can also be quite handy. But you know, if you run an instance with lots of numerics in your database, in your database names, chances are you're going to want to disable that. I'll show you how to disable that because it is quite annoying. So let's change that. Let's turn that off. So let's turn it off in here. So we go to tables in our central login database. We go to settings. If I find it, it's down here. And oh, sorry, wrong one. There's a module we want to disable, don't we? So we want to disable the module. So I'd come over here and I can write an update from here. Update this table. Never type live, never type live. Set enable. Is it potential ad hoc? Let's have a look. What's it called? Ad hoc database creations equals 1 where ID equals 1. So I've switched that off for the default module, which both of my servers are using currently. So if I was to rerun the report for Find My Link server, make sure it's not running. No, it's not running. It's all good. Let's pick up the latest. Let's get rid of that. Let's pick up the latest report, ID3. Bung it in my notepad. Save that off. Refresh my page. Didn't refresh it at all, did it? Did I save it? Clearly not. I'll tell you for why, because I didn't rerun my collection. That helps. Rerun the collection, rerun the report. Copy that. Dive over here. Sorry about the clicking. You do edit that out, Dave.
Yeah. This might be going out live.
Yeah, lucky, isn't it? Lucky. I don't know why that's not switched off. Did I?
It's never going to work right with the camera switched on, is it?
It's not, is it? Make sure you edit that bit out. We won't go to that. We'll move to something else. Did I set it to 1? That's why, didn't I? I set it to 1.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
I'll tell you why. That's why it didn't work. So you can edit that bit out, and we'll go back. We'll jump into this bit instead. So we'll update this.
That didn't happen. That never happened.
No, enable ad hoc equals 0, where ID equals 1 for the default. Let's give that an update. So now let's run the collection again. Just make sure it's not running. Collection's finished. Good. Let's run a report. Fantastic. So let's do this. Save it over the top. Refresh the report. Okay, there we go. So it's not there anymore. I don't care about the ad hoc report one. I don't care about the ad hoc database creations. So I've just knocked it off. So, and just to prove that it's definitely disabled, obviously we've done it in the modules table, but you can see it down here too. So for each server, you've got a disabled modules list. So you can see that I've disabled enable ad hoc database creations check. So it's in there. And if you're wondering what use median is to do with the dry space report. Now what I've got here is my drives available on this machine, and currently this daily growth GB is a calculation based on how much this grows on a daily basis depending on the days recorded. Now 1 day's worth of record is not going to give you anything because it's got nothing to calculate. It's only going to be once you get to the 2nd day and beyond where you're actually going to start getting a calculation in there, and that's only if things actually differ anyway, otherwise it's still going to be 0. But the way in which it calculates that, it basically starts with an average base calculation. So it's going to look at the difference in growth between 1 day and the next, and it's going to take an average of all those growths, and that's going to be what it puts in here. But you can change it to a median. If you're not happy with the way average works, or if you've got lots of databases going on, or you've got databases that regularly get replaced with like maybe training databases, they get live cuts on a regular basis, so they get bigger. So they go from, I don't know, 200 meg to 500 meg on a regular basis. Now they're going to show as if that's almost like a growth in usage on that drive, and that can be misleading. So that might be a good use case for the median based calculation over the average based. But you kind of got to get a feel for it. You know, I'd probably say roll with average first, see how it feels. If you don't like the way it looks, flick over to median, see how that works for you. You know, you just got to find the sweet spot, I guess. So that's pretty much it, really. I mean, this is the report. This is what you're going to get. So you're going to get the traffic light here. You're going to get your warning conditions. You're going to get your advisory conditions. And you've got nice little hyperlinks that take you directly to that area. So I've got here following databases where the ownership's not SA. If I want to change those things, personally for me, I'm going to run SP change database ownership set to SA. Job done. That's how I do it. In fact, let's do it right now. Let's do it right now. Let's do it. And this is exactly where you find out when you didn't install it, because you've got a new VM. That's probably exactly what did happen here. Nope, we've got it. Change to new owner. Chuck that in there. Job done. Let's imagine it's a different day. We've gone past 24 hours. We're collecting the data again for our agent job. I wouldn't be hand cranking this. I'd set a schedule for it, of course. But, let's pretend we're on the next day. I made those changes. They're not running. We run a report. The report comes through in the morning. I've handled the advisories. Of course, I would have handled the AG warnings too first, but this is just demonstration. And then we should see it knocked off the list. Go to the top. We only changed it on SQL 02. So SQL 01 still got a problem, but SQL 02 is fixed. SQL 02 no longer tells me that it's got yellow, but it has got red, unfortunately. So it's still red.
So the database ownership there, that's configurable, isn't it? SA isn't a setting that we're necessarily recommending. That's all configurable within the system.
Not at all. Yeah, and that's a good point actually. Let's give that a quick run through. So some of the settings you set up in the beginning in the installation script here, what these do, they get dumped into the settings table. So yeah, maybe maybe you don't want it set that way. Let's go to the central config, go to settings. Maybe you don't want it SA. Perhaps you want to do it a different way. Perhaps you want that to be a different login. You just set it here. So you come into the settings table and you can have this comma delimited. So if you've got a couple of logins that you're happy to have, then, some people like to have admin or the agent service, because maybe they have agent services that run and, restore their databases periodically for nightly refreshes and things like that. Yeah, change it in there. Put the service name in there, comma delimit it with SA if you're happy with SA as well. It's going to exclude all of those ones you've got in there. So it's going to look at all the databases and check that if you haven't got ownerships that are in this list, tell me what they are. Tell me what those databases are, because I want to make them one of these owners. And the good thing about that is as well, is it's going to show you what that's reporting on in the report. So this is all dynamic. It's going to take it from this column. It's going to tell you, if you look at one, mine's set to SA, but it would show you a comma delimited list based on what you have in that column. So if you're doing it on 3 different logins, it's going to show all 3 logins in there. So it is configurable. You can do quite a bit with it and tailor it how you want to have it tailored, how you want it to work for you. I mean, you don't have to have this set to 56 days. You can set this to a lot less or a lot more. The 10% thing, you can change that to. I could set that to flag at 25%, and this one's going to go yellow. So really depends how you want to run things. Some of these things are for informational only. I mean, if you check the blog post, it tells you what warns and what doesn't warn. Certain things don't warn, such as failed jobs do, but failed logins don't. They're just for informational purposes only. We may add an alert for that at some point, but the trouble is, what do you alert on? You probably don't want to know about every failed login. Sometimes that's legitimate, but probably a good thing to do is come down here on a regular basis and just see what's going on. Because how often do you check failed logins all the time? You may or may not be doing it. It's going to capture all that stuff there. It's going to tell you how many failed in the last 24 hours, how many attempts that particular login made, and the very last error that was put out by that particular login. Another one that's not going to give you a warning is top 5 databases, because it's just informational only. What are my biggest databases on the server? It's quite a nice, handy one to know, actually, just to get used to get a feel for the server. And then you've got things like backup sizes by day. So you're going to tell what are your busiest days for backups. It's going to tell you that information there. It's quite a nice little one to know. And then you've got a nice breakdown of database settings as well. I've got multiple collations here. It's not the nicest, instance. Auto close, whether you're disabled, enabled, or disabled. This one will flag a few alerts. Auto close, auto shrink, and auto update. If these are, if this one's enabled and auto shrink's enabled, it's going to tell you about either of those. And if auto stats is disabled, it's going to tell you about that too. But it's pretty handy. You get a report per server, and the idea of this, like I say, it's just that daily digest. One of the good things is this dry space, though. This is a really handy one to know. This is a nice little indication as to how long have you got until things are going to really start to run out. And it's not an exact science, but it's a nice little calculation to see where you're at. And what you'll get at the bottom, so this is always going to be on a server by server basis. So you've got SQL 01 here, and you'll see further down you've got SQL 02. But at the very bottom, you're going to get stuff that's applicable to all servers. So if I had any database growths, it's going to show me which server it grew out on and what the file information was. We could fudge that too. I could show you that. Just for the sake of this, actually, I could, couldn't I? I'll show you what one looks like very quickly. So let's pick on AdventureWorks. What's its growth set to at the moment? 16 meg. So let's chuck that up to about, I don't know, something above 2. So let's go 240. We'll grow that out. We'll rerun our collection. Make sure it's not running. No, brilliant. Run the report. Get rid of that window. Grab the last report. Of course, you're going to be getting emails for this stuff. You won't be messing around with notepad files like me, but so there we've got a growth. It's going to tell you that at the top, database growth. You've got one growth event that's above your threshold. So we didn't go above that 10 maximum that I set, but we did go above that once. So in this case, we did 2 growths at 16 meg. This was the size prior to growth. This is the size now. And it's suggesting us a growth of 100 meg purely because with the inspector, anything that's less than 100 meg, it's just going to suggest you 100 meg as a basic. Look, this should be the base for everything. Again, that's not any best practice or anything like that. It's just we wanted to hard code something for anything that was quite small values. So we decided 100 meg is probably a good way to go as a starting point. So it's just got a suggestion there. So look, maybe you should set that to 100 because then you won't get so many of these growths. But that's completely up to you. You need to get a feel for that thing. You need to get a feel for that. So yeah, it tells you what server it's on, what database, what exact file, because you could have more than one data file. It doesn't do logs. It's only database files. Pre-size, growth, how many times it grew, what size it is now. And like I said, it falls into the yellow because it wasn't more than 10. So that's quite a handy one to have. It pretty much concludes the inspector really. You really need to just get it set up, have a go with it, have a play with it, tune your settings and just see if it works for you, I think. I mean, it can be really handy and quite tailor, you can tailor it to how you like. One thing I will say, it's really important though, is when you do set it up, you're not going to get any schedules for your jobs. So what we tend to do is just set the collections up for each server round about 5, maybe 10 minutes ahead of the actual report. So for the actual inspector report, set this up, if you're going to set it for 9 o'clock, set this for 8:50. 10 minutes later, set these up for 9 o'clock. And it doesn't matter if you set it up to run on all the servers because there's a check. It's going to do a check to see if you're using linked servers, it's going to check that this is the primary, this is your central location for that linked server. This is your linked server. If it is, it will run a report. Otherwise, it will back out and say, I'm not the server. So it will happily run whether it is or not. So you don't have to worry about disabling it here and having it enabled on the right server. It's going to handle that for you if you're using linked server. So don't worry. Because if I run it on SQL 2, it's just going to say exactly this. It's going to say not to the source server for the report because it knows it's not the source of, in my case, inspector config because it's pointing to SQL 01. Whereas on SQL 01, it's going to write, it's going to run, and it's going to run your report for you. So do be sure that you're setting these schedules because it's not going to set those for you. That's not a configurable option as part of the setup. You do have to set it yourself. And the same with the periodic backups collection. You might want to do that every 2 hours or something, but just make sure you set that a couple of minutes before you actually do your report so that the collection has a chance to go out, populate your central database, and then the report can go in and say, right, what have you got for me? And it's going to do its thing. So that's pretty much scraping the surface of it, really. That's how it is. The setup's nice and simple. You've got lots of configurable options in settings. You can turn off modules. You can turn modules on, off. Like I say, if you want to set that median on, the median's in there too. It's classed as a module. It's right at the very end. So if you want to start using median calculation, switch it on. It's going to use that as for the drive space calculations. And each time you do one of these, it also controls the collection too. So if you look at one of the collection jobs, it's going to check all of those things. Let's just throw that into a window just so you can see it better. It's going to check all of them things and say, look, have you got any of this enabled for my given server? If you have, only run those specific things. So it's not going to go out collecting more than it needs either. So it's one thing that we don't report on what you need, but we don't collect what you don't need either, because I mean that's just pointless. So it's nice and clean in that respect. If you tell it to run one module, it's only going to collect one module. It's going to report on one module. Just a way of keeping it as lightweight as possible. And that's it, really. I think that pretty much covers all the basics, really. What do you think,
Nice
Dave?
one.
I think that covers it.
That
covers it.
Yeah. Good for me, mate. It's good.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
No worries. And hopefully we'll get, hopefully people are looking at it and think, yeah, do you know what? This might work for me. And we'll get a few people out there that are going to pick it up.
And we've been running it for a good few months, and it has. It's been really, really useful. We had to come in the morning. I mean, before, when we had emails from all over the place, weren't we? We would get emails on our jobs. There'd be a separate email on, I don't know, database states, and we get hundreds and hundreds of emails coming from all different servers. Yeah, we have to go through them all. This is great. It just brings everything into a single email. We show up 9 in the morning, and there it is. All the information we need to know. We have a quick check down. We know exactly the state all our servers are in. It's really good. It's been really, really handy for us. So cheers for that, Aid.
No worries, right.
So when are we looking at let's go for a release? Sometime this month, I'm thinking.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's not going to be more than a couple of weeks. I think I've got a few more refinements just to make. I want to try and just tidy the HTML a touch. Just put a few finishing touches in a few places, a little bit of formatting, and I think we're good to go. To be honest, I want to get it out. I want to hopefully get people using it, get a bit of feedback from people using it, whether it works for them or not. How they're using it. Be nice to get a bit of feedback from other people, see how they're using it, and see if there's extra things that people want to see in there, because I'm sure there's other things out there that we can put into it to make it better. I could already think of a few things to make it better, as extra modules to stick in there. This is just a start, really.
No, it's really good. And obviously, if anyone wants to use it before we've released it, get in touch. More than happy to get beta testers, and if anyone that wants to test this stuff out feel free. Just drop us a line.
More than welcome.
Drop us a line and we'll send you the scripts over. I think you're going to do a bunch of full tutorials on how to set this stuff up, aren't you, as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'll definitely. This is just a quick run through, but I'll definitely go through it in a more sort of granular way and say, this is how you get this to, this is how you tune this. This is the result of this sort of thing. Yeah, step-by-step approach, because I think there's quite a bit to it. It's easy for me because I sat there writing the thing, but it really does need a step-by-step. You run this, and this way you tune this. This will have this effect, that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely. I'll definitely set up a few of those tutorials. Make things a little bit easier for people, but hopefully that'll give people a nice flying start, to be honest.
Right then, so on to our next bit then, which is SP Restore script.
Yes.
So SP Restore script, that is just a little script that we've put together that just builds your backup restore, your database restore scripts for you. It's been out of a couple of versions now. We've currently got version 1.1 out. So this is version 1.2, which is now it's actually released. So let me show you. If you need to, right, where can you get it from? It's all these stuff, everything we've got, and same as all the scripts that Aid showed us earlier on, all available on SQLundercover.com. If you click on the Undercover Toolbox link, that will give you all of our toolbox. Although some of these is not loading up properly at the moment, which is. There we go.
Internet problems. Don't do it.
It's always the way, isn't it? So they're all on there. If you want to hunt out, there's a little search bar. So we look up SP Restore script.
This is dead handy. I used this only a couple of weeks ago. We had a new SQL server to add in. We got added into the cluster and everything, and I thought, ahead of time, I thought, wouldn't it be a cool thing to kind of log ship to this server? Do something, get the falls in place, get the transaction logs playing in. So when we do join that thing in, all we need to do is just play in the last few logs and then just join his database to the AG. And I mean, there was a lot of databases on that server, and I thought, well, I'll tell you what, I reckon SP Restore could be handy here, and I did, and it was easy. It was fantastic. It was brilliant.
It is handy, isn't it? I mean, I use it a lot.
Yeah, it's good. Let's go. Let's do it. Show us how it works.
You can jump on and grab it from the website. Script will be on there. If you come into the website as well, the post itself, it's got a full list of all the parameters, a description of the parameters as well, a few examples of how to use it, and the source code too. You can also, now we have all of our scripts up on GitHub. So if you click on a little GitHub script, a little GitHub link, I did this was it last week you did this?
I think about 2 weeks ago now, wasn't it?
2 weeks ago. But yeah, went through all of our scripts up here. So anything we now put on the blog post is also going to go up here. It's all open source. It's all going to be under open source license. So feel free to download it. Do what you like with it. It's all up to you. Oh, excuse me, got a bit of cough going on.
Hello.
So anyway, it's always when I'm talking. But you were talking for hours then. I was fine. As soon as I start talking, that's it. Off it goes.
That's what it was. Don't cough when you're asleep.
Right, so SP Restore script, what is it? How does it work? One prerequisite for it is, if you're running anything prior to SQL 2016, you will need FN split string. Adrian also mentioned that in his one, he used it too. So all FN split string does, it's going to take in a, taking a common delimited list and split that common delimited list down into tables. So exactly the same as string split in later versions of SQL. And if you are using SQL 2016 or later, SP Restore script will automatically use string split. So let's have a little look at it in action. So there are a number of different options. You've got different parameters, but let's just let me just show you at a basic level. What am I doing?
Typing live is brave man.
Oh, I shouldn't do it, should I? I should have got this stuff beforehand, really. So your most basic parameter you've got is database name. Okay, so in there you can just pop in whatever database you're trying to restore. Now this can be a common delimited list. Like Ada, I've just set up all my VMs again recently, so I haven't got a lot of databases on here. But let's pop in SQL Undercover. And what that's going to do, it's going to go away and it's going to bring back all of the restore commands we need to restore our database by default to the latest log. So it's going to go and find the most recent full, the most recent diff, if there is one, and all the log backups up to the most recent. That's its default. We also have, if we want to restore as a different name, we don't want to restore SQL Undercover, we want to call it something else. We then have a parameter which lets us do that, which is restore as name. So we call that, I don't know, we could just call that copy, for example. Our restore commands now come back, restoring database to our new name. We have got another few options. We can do point in time restores here. So, and that works exactly the same way. So again, another parameter, which is point in time. Now this is either going to be set to a 1 or set to a 0. So if we want to perform a point in time restore, we have to set that to 1. And then another parameter we've got is restore to date. And that with point in time set to 1, this will be our point in time we're going to restore to. So I'm just going to be lazy and steal a time off of there because I can't bother to type it. Let's call it 1421. If we do that, we're now restoring to a point in time at 1421. So again, the script will go out and get all the relevant backup files that we need. With point in time switched off, we can still use restore to date, but with point in time switched off, that will now restore to the nearest log that matches that time. So if we want to restore to nearest we can at 1421, but not necessarily going to do a point in time this time, it'll go and find the nearest log, which in this case is 1400.
Didn't know about that one.
Did you not?
No, I didn't know about that one. No, I don't use it with that flick. Whenever I've gone to restore to date, I've had point in time on. I've never had it off. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Didn't know about that. Yeah.
It's handy if you haven't got any. If perhaps you've got a simple recovery mode and you just need to get to the nearest diff to that point. It becomes in handy there.
And if you want to be really lazy, you could just leave database name out, and when it picks what you're in now, would it use your current database context?
It should. You know what? How did I write this?
I think it does. Doesn't it? If you use SQL Undercover, I think is that because you're using master.
It could be. It could be. You know, you're making me wonder now.
I think it does. I could be thinking things.
Yeah, you're dead right there, eh? Look at that. You want
to be really lazy, right? Do it that way.
See, I like this thing. I can't even remember how it works.
I prefer to type stuff personally, but
it's easier, isn't it? It's easier. So yes, we got. There's a bunch of different options you've got. I mean, another one you've got is a restore options. At the restore options, we might only want to restore the last full database. So if we only want to restore the last full database, we can stick in to full. So restore to the last full, and we'll just get back the command to the last full database.
Nice.
We can restore to diff, and we'll get back the commands to bring us to the latest diff database. Obviously, restore to date still applies to this as well. If we stick point in time on though, it's not going to like that because we can't do a point in time to diff backup, so we will get a little error there. So point in time does need to be switched off, which by default it is. And obviously we have then to log. To log is the default option, which brings us to our log files. Another thing we can do here is log only. So let's say that we've already restored a bunch of databases and we've got them in restoring mode. We just need to play in some more recent logs. We can use log only. Now, if we use log only, there's another parameter we need to use with it. I mean, if we try to do it without, we'll get an error message. No, we get an error message because I typed that wrong. That's the one I was looking for.
That's better.
Hang on, no, that's the wrong as well. You know what? I don't ever do a demo live. They say that, don't they?
This is it. And
this is the reason. Because the restore is logs only.
If it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong.
There we go. So when restore to logs only, we need to give it a first log to restore date. So let's so this would be if you have restored a bunch of logs and you just need to play in the most recent, obviously first log to restore will be the last log that you played in. So let's call that I don't know. Let's have everything from 11 o'clock this morning. So we do that. We'll get back all the commands to restore all the logs from 11 o'clock this morning. You'll notice the last log always plays in with recovery. If we want to change that, we've got a little parameter for that.
Also, at this point, you don't need restore to date, do you? So if you wanted to go right up to now, you can.
Oh yeah, of course.
Get rid of that.
Yes,
As well,
if we lose restore to date, it'll bring us up to the most recent.
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I used with that server. Yeah, it was that. It was start here because I had a lookup that went in and checked at what point is that database being restored to, and that was I passed that into first log to restore, and then it got me from then on right up to now, and that's how it kind of used it as like a log shipping method, really. Well, it's a log shipping method at the log ship server's end as opposed to the other end, yeah. But the secondary server's end, really handy with that.
Yeah, this is what I like. I quite like it for. I mean, if we're restoring a bunch of, I mean, it's great. I think you was using it to sync up AGs, weren't you?
Yeah, I've used it for that too. Yeah, it's really handy for that. Yeah.
So really we can use the GUI. We can right click it. We can do restore, and we can do a point in time using the GUI. But if you want to restore your databases onto another server, like say we want to bring an AG into sync, then this is where I find it really, really useful.
Yeah.
So we've got a with no recovery option. So if we switch that to 1, instead of the last log playing in with recovery, it'll play in with no recovery. So we can carry on playing our logs in afterwards if we wanted to do that. What else? We've put a few new things in. So in the past, we've now got a standby mode. So we can now restore a database in standby using the standby parameter. And that will take a path for a redo path. So let's just pinch this path.
Is that a new feature?
That's the new one I've put in for 1.2.
Yeah,
so this is new in this version.
Yeah, nice.
That redo dot, I don't know. What do you call a redo file? I never quite know what the extension should be, but
yeah, I think it's a back. Strangely enough,
is it really?
I've got a feeling it's a back. Yeah,
I don't know. I've never really thought about it, to be honest.
No,
but so that will then give us to bring us our database into standby.
It's one of those ones where I always end up scripting it from the GUI, the standby one. I just always forget. So I'll always just set it up in the GUI, script it out, and then just make my amendments in the script. Just never remember that. Never remember the standby syntax. Just hardly ever use it.
Do you not?
No.
That's it. With standby equals, and that's going to be your redo file.
Yeah, it's a simple one. That's why. I think that's why I forget. It's so simple. Too simple.
So that's restore script really. It's as simple as that. There's not much to go over with it. That's what it does. So as I say, version 1.2 will be out by the time you're watching this. Will be out. If you go to our blog, there's full documentation of it there. So you've got each parameter. You've got a list of all your parameters, your defaults, a bunch of examples for whatever you want to do. I mean, generate and restore it for transaction logs between specified dates. With move, obviously, if you want to restore your database with move, there's 2 parameters that will do that: with move data path and with move log path. Now, if you've got multiple data files, this is another new feature now with 1.2, which wasn't there before. It will now take a common delimited list in with move data path. And I think that's pretty much it.
It's really handy, yeah.
That is the store script.
Very good, nice.
But,
I like that. It's a really useful one. It's really useful. Like I say, I've used it quite a few times lately, more than any other time. I've used it so many times. It's just so easy, isn't it? It's just getting used to like any procedure that's got a lot of parameters in it. Once you get used to using it, or just save off a template somewhere in a notepad file, like I tend to do, save an example somewhere, copy and paste it in, and then you're good to go, aren't you? It's just remembering what to plug into it, but it's pretty straightforward, really. It's just so handy.
You've got things that you're going to use time and time again, and once you start using it, you get used to what you're doing, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, another thing I found really useful for this is if you're doing automated restores.
Yep.
So if you've got an agent job that you're using to restore a database, and you want to always bring it up to the latest point in time, it's a really nice little prop that will do that for you quite easily.
That's the thing that's good about it. It's good in its own right, but it's also really handy to use as something else. So you can feed stuff into it to use, like what you just said. If you want to keep something up to date, you can just sit it inside of something else, like a loop or a cursor or something like that, to pass it values and do something with it. So if you are doing multiple databases that you want to keep up to date, you just pass in there the first log to restore, and you want to bring it up to date, and that's it. First log to restore for a specified database, off it goes, does its thing. You can even use those commands in a table to spin through and execute those commands, to, like you say, to keep it completely automated. That's the good thing about it. It's not actually going to execute that stuff unless you tell it to. But yeah, it can be a really cool way of doing it. Easy.
We like easy, don't we? Anything that makes our life easy is good.
I like easy. Easy dudes. Yeah.
Right, so I think that's pretty much us, I think, isn't it? So I was going to do the ends, but we've been going a while now, haven't we?
We've been gassing for a long time. It's started to get dark. That's how I've been talking.
I bet your lights disappearing there.
Well, I've got some, because I'm in the kids' room, right? And because it's easier in it, better reception in it.
We're professional, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. And there's LEDs up in here, right? And that's where the red glow's coming from. It's not the heat generating off my forehead. There is LEDs in here that keep flashing between red and green and blue. And I don't know where the remote is to turn them off. I can't find it. Oh, it's quite good though. It's quite entertaining.
Yeah, watching you now. All things. Oh, yeah, you go blue.
You can see it now. Yeah, because the room's got darker now. And now you can see the hue changing in the room. Yeah, because there they go. It's like a disco. A very slow tempo disco.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, it would have been nice to have gone in a little bit more depth with Inspector and stuff. But the thing is, it's just too long to go through in one video. And I need to break it down. But it'd be nice to get it out there. If there are some people there that want to get an early release on it, I mean, that'd be amazing. Just pop us a message, email in, contact us on the blog, whatever. Yeah, feel free. We'll send you the code out and give it a go. It'd be nice to hear some feedback from other people that are using it. See how useful it is. If it's useful, if there's stuff that they're doing that they want monitored, something that could be worthwhile adding in. I'd imagine when it is out there. Being on Git, we'll probably say, look, raise issues for stuff, and then we'll get it in there. If it's something we want in there, we'll get it in there, and we'll make it bigger than it is, because this is just a starting point of things that we felt were really useful to track and keep a handle of, and to let us know about, so that we can go and actively fix. But I'd imagine there's a bunch of other stuff, things like certificate backups and things like that. There's loads of stuff out there, isn't there, that people must track and keep a handle on.
And that's why I love it, because the way you've written it's all modular, isn't it? So it's dead easy just to plug different modules into it. It's really good. Yeah, excited about this one. It's going to be good.
I think so. Yeah, I hope so. It's the biggest project so far, and it's nice to finally get to that point where it's nearly there, and it won't be long at all. Yeah, I think pretty much by the end. Well, I don't know about by the end of this month. It's 28th now, but yeah, within the next week, I would probably say it's going to be out there. So keep an eye out. Keep an eye out.
It's going to be good.
So what's up next time then? What are we going to do next time? Bit of Python?
We could look at Python, couldn't we? Look at Python.
Actually,
let's do the VMs. So I mentioned the VMs I said earlier. I think we have probably been yabbing it for too long now, and
yeah,
most people probably fallen asleep if there's anyone still out there watching. So
VMs.
We'll do VMs next time. Yeah, a bit of Python would be cool.
Yep.
Let's have a look at Python. In the concepts like for DBA, rather than the machine learning BI side of things, which is over my head. Very, very clever guys know that stuff. Yeah, no idea. But for concepts for DBA and what you can do with Python, I think it's great. I'm really excited by it, and not many people are really digging into it yet either. So it's going to be good to have a proper look at and see what we can come up with, see what we can do with it.
Yeah, I think that the good thing about it is that it doesn't seem to be this kind of restricted list of modules, and they haven't given you a cut down version. It seems to be quite a rich suite of stuff that you can do with it and import into it to use as well. So
I think you managed this week, didn't you? You imported a couple of custom modules in.
I was having a little play, yeah, I was having a little play, and Element Tree popped up. I thought, oh, I can mess around with a bit of XML, and so I imported it in, and I was able to use and toy and mess around with some XML stuff. So I'm going to be looking into that and have a little play with that, because I like the idea of this. It's it's got some uses potentially. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people loving PowerShell out there, and I think PowerShell is great. I think it's really, really good for what a lot of people are using it for. But this is just another tool, isn't it? Another tool in the toolbox that I think it could be really good.
It's nice it's all there, isn't it? I know it's external, but you are calling it from SQL, so it's quite cool that it's got that integration.
Isn't it? You can have that stuff incorporated into a proc or a function. Didn't just say that, but a proc, or something like that. I mean, you haven't got to break out to command shell or something like that to do it. It's all kind of semi-integrated. It's not really integrated, but it's sort of integrated.
I'd like to see what potential it has. It'd be nice to see a few people, really, really go with it and see what you can get from it, see what you can do with it. Just people that really know about that language, because there's an awful lot you can do with it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think more as the Linux guys start coming to SQL, I think before we go to start seeing more of that as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if the SQL Linux has really got a hold yet, but I think once that gets going and those guys coming, because I mean they know Python inside, they're using it all the time, Linux boys. So it'd be good to see what they do.
Starting to see a few more bits out there. I've seen a few posts kicking about now. A few more from sort of week in, week out. So I've seen a few more mentions of Python, more so than there was, a few months ago. It was really quiet. It came out and it was so quiet. It's like, well, why is it so quiet? I was so really excited about it, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, there seems to be a lot more take up now. Like week in, week out, I'm seeing something, something out there now, which is really quite.
I think there's a lot of people very, very invested in PowerShell, isn't there? I mean,
yeah.
You've got DBA tools. I mean, a cracking set of tools, a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people like that are very, very invested in PowerShell and maybe haven't seen the potential of Python yet. I mean, it's been marketed as a BI machine learning thing, isn't it? Python, I think, and a lot of it's just missing a lot of people at the moment. But
DBA tools is fantastic. I saw there was a tweet from them earlier to say that they'd started a year off with 10,000 commits already. It's like, wow, that's impressive. That's impressive. 102 contributors, I think it was. Wow.
But really, no.
Amazing.
There's some clever people in there as well. Very clever people.
Very good. I'm looking forward to their latest edition. I think they're going to announce in February when SQL Bits is. I think they're going to launch SQL Bits, I believe.
Is that the monitor?
Yeah, that's looking
good. That looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
So yes, it's a performance monitoring thing written in PowerShell, and I've seen a preview of it. It's looking really good.
It looks good. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it till next time.
That's us then.